Today we're going to talk about Melanie McGuire. She was convicted of murdering her husband, and Greg's found some great videos on her. Greg, tell us about those videos.
Yeah, I think this is from an ABC News special on her called The Body in the Suitcase or something like that. She's from Central Jersey. Her husband went missing, and later they found his body down in Chesapeake Bay, down in the Virginia Beach area, where he had been cut up into pieces, put in 3 matching pieces of luggage, wrapped in plastic, thrown into the water, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go. There was no physical evidence that tied her to the crime. Lots of circumstantial evidence. The luggage was hers. The garbage bags were from her house, and you'll hear some more of it as we go.
Who is the Melanie McGuire you hope the jury knows?
The one who tried to take care of everybody, who didn't make the smartest decisions, but admitted to those mistakes to the people she trusted most, but did not admit what she's accused of.
Okay, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, right into that one. Yeah. So I think what we're seeing is a carefully structured self-image, and the way she slowly speaks. I lived in that part of Jersey for a lot of years, and that's not a standard Jersey brogue kind of pop, move fast, talk, that kind of thing, but a very carefully crafted image. And I would just about guarantee you anybody who knows her would say that's the way she talked to them all the time. Because look at how she uses her face when she's talking. I did not admit, blink, 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 blink. She even pauses in cadence at I did not admit. She didn't say I didn't do it. She said I didn't admit it. That's all she said. She said, I tell people that I trust. I'm assuming that's her lawyer maybe. I don't trust anybody who is smoothly moving along and then chooses the words did not admit, and the cadence shifts, and then you see something different. So I'll just leave it at that. She's starting her right out of the gate. She's got her own image of self to maintain, and that is I'm a good person and I sacrifice for others. That's what I got. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think you get this conflict of images then, because there's at take care of everybody, there's a collision of nonverbals. So we get eyebrow raise and a smile. So that seems agreeable and open, doesn't it? But at exactly the same time, we get nostril flare and suppression of the lips and a bit of a chin jut as well. So that seems to me to be closed and aggressive. So hang on. So can you be agreeable and open and closed and aggressive at the same time? Well, you can if you have an internal conflict going on, i.e. you're trying to be one thing while you're something else at the same time. So it's quite complicated what's happening here. So already I don't trust what's going on here particularly. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right, at the very beginning, we see a little squint, a tiny little, it's almost a micro expression of a squint when we see that. Now, we squint when we see something that we don't like, something that offends us, or something we're afraid of. And in this case, the word who triggers her, who is. When the woman says, who is Melanie McGuire? She's not ready for it. She doesn't know who she's going to ask her about, even though it's her sitting there. It would be obvious. That's my impression of it, because you see that tiny little squint that makes her uncomfortable. Then we see the confirmation nod. A lot of people say, oh, that's saying this when she's saying no or whatever. She's just confirming that that's what she wants to say and that what she's saying is positive and that that's what she wants to get out, is that part. Then we see an eye flutter. And that suggests here the same as the squint. As she's talking about what she's talking about there, it bothers her to say it because she knows it's not true. And so we see the flutter quite often is the same as, well, you'll see it's the same as like a really short squint sometimes too. We'll get into emblems in a few minutes. But this is painful for her as well, because not painful like is in pain, but emotionally. And her brain says, no, this isn't true. We got to be cool about this. So it's painful for her to say that. Now, we see lip compression that follows that as well. Because when she's saying this, she says what does she say? She says, I can't believe, or she can't believe that if it's not me, then the killer is out there. Then the killer would be out there running free. Well, it is her, and she's not out there running free. She basically, I think she almost admits to what she's done at that point. Listen to that again, you'll see what I'm talking about. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with you guys. She's also talking in third person here throughout the entire clip. And I think some of that has to do with that she's, been asked this question in a strange way. But I think she finds comfort in doing this. And if I were the interrogator, I would start asking questions. And instead of what did you do, I would say, what did Melanie do about this? Or what did Melanie think about this? And I would push her into a dissociative frame of mind as much as I possibly could, just with this one person, though. So when she says I did not admit what she was accused of, there's eye flutter, which is a deviation for her. There's a shift to internal dialogue where her eyes go down and to her left. And this is when we're talking about something inside of our head. And there's an immediate mouth closure after this. So she finishes this little statement and shuts her mouth immediately, which is also a deviation from her baseline. And somehow, I think it's magic, but she suddenly gets a whole lot older and changes clothes. But this is definitely unusual. I haven't seen a person do that before. I don't think it's deceptive, but it's definitely strange.
I haven't seen it since the Michael Jackson video.
Choice.
Yeah.
Who is the Melanie McGuire you hope the jury knows?
The one who tried to take care of everybody, who didn't make the smartest decisions, but admitted to those mistakes to the people she trusted most, but did not admit what she's accused of.
I have been incarcerated for 12 and a half, going on 13 years now.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
You're sitting here a wrongfully convicted person.
Correct. Absolutely.
And what have those years been like?
I tell people it's not as bad as you think in some ways, and it's so much worse than I could ever articulate in others. After all these years, I still feel hurt. I still feel bothered. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so let's go further into that video. I really like the moment where she says, how could somebody think I did that? Well, I think that's a little bit of distancing there because she knows the people who think she did that. So why not mention the exact people? There's distancing from the people who are judging her. And then at that moment, there is again a collision of nonverbals in the face. I see disdain. I think I see Jupa's delight as well. That smile turn into a very asymmetrical, pull up here. Tongue jut for me directly afterwards as well. And maybe a little bit of a chin jut as well at the same time. That for me is enough of a collision to go, I think there's something really going on here that I don't like the look of. And maybe it scores on table of behavioral table of elements. Chase, I would love it if you have a score. I don't know whether you're going to disappoint me or not. So, Chase, what do you got on this one?
I'm glad you asked. Her score is actually a 13 on the table of elements. So she does score above an 11, which is a free thing. You can download it all over my website. I don't charge any money for it. Enjoy. But she scores a 13 based on behavior parameters there. There's some more eye flutter, and then eye flutter occurs at key moments. So every video, what I'm going to try to do right off the bat is give you this baseline behavior. What should I be looking for in these future videos? Right at the key moments, incarcerated for several years, wrongfully convicted person, make someone say, wait, or know what? She said something about something being false. But we're identifying potential stress and discomfort markers. And right when she says, how could somebody think, there's some contempt, I think, Mark, you said that, and Scott. There's lip licking. There's a strange facial expression there that's kind of a weird blend of fear, shame, and guilt all mashed into one. And the eyes move down to internal dialogue down here. And but only after a transderivational search. So they move down to internal dialogue, but only after they move around a lot. She's processing a lot of data right here. And this is one of the best nonverbal clips that has so much emotion and concealment in it. So Greg picks these out for us every week. So Greg, thank you, man. This is a fantastic clip. What do you got?
Thanks. Hey, for me, I wonder when I watch this, of course, I see exactly the same things you see, that she has this thing where she says that someone would believe. I wonder if in her mind at that moment, it's somebody particular she's thinking of, because she shows when she does that, she's got this kind of look to her with the chin boss flutter and her lips moving a little that looks like she's genuinely hurt, like this person that I trusted or. Now, whether you kill somebody or not, you still may have a feeling of betrayal by someone. So I wonder if that's where she's getting the emotion, because there's a lot of stuff going on in her face, just like you guys say, that's difficult to pull out. The chin boss does move, her mouth does quiver. She doesn't mark a pronounced tongue jut. I mean, a chin jut. I agree with you. There's something there. And then all that contempt and disdain in the left side of her face that just melts off there. And I agree with you, Chase. That eyelid flutter, I think happens. You coined the phrase closed eye talking once upon a time. And I think this is her closed eye talking. Well, they're, kind of her eyelids fluttering, or you're closed eye talking, because she does it at negative emotions almost every time. But she's still trying to maintain that very contained, metered conversation so that she appears to be in charge at all times. The one thing I would say, we all talk to people about juries. We do jury selection. We do witness prep and depositions. Don't sit and glare if you're in trouble. Don't look like I could kill you to the people that are going to decide whether they believe you could have killed someone. It's probably not a good choice. Scott, what do you got?
All right. At the top, we're seeing that eyelash flutter, the blink flutter there. As she's saying this suggests again that this is emotionally painful for her when she starts speaking, because she doesn't like hearing it, but even more so, again, she hates saying it. It's painful for her to say. We can tell that because both sides of her mouth are pulled down just a little bit right there, the way they should be. We're going to talk in a few minutes about how so they're not the way they should be in just a few minutes. So that indicates sadness. So I would be under the impression that is actually painful for her. Her voice tone is a little bit higher than it was in the first video. So this is later, and it's a little bit weaker. That could come with age and stress. And then here comes that word absolutely again. We're hearing that. And it seems like the word absolutely always pops up when someone has done something they shouldn't have done. They're trying to pretend like they didn't do it. So we see disgust here. Now, that's a micro expression on either side of her nose, and when it pulls upward like that. Then at the end of that micro expression, we see sadness again on both sides of her mouth. They pull down. But there's something very interesting here, which is chirality. And that's when you have two different expressions at the same time. Now, we have happiness and we have a smile. That's in one part of it. And most people are going to be under the impression that we're seeing somewhat contempt, because we see just part of her mouth go up. However, what's happening is we see a smile start as that comes up, where it's not contempt we're seeing there. She's trying to act like everything's okay. And these things are called emblematic slips, where you or when you see these things in a group like this and you see this happen, that's an emblematic slip. So, and that's where the person cannot or should not reveal something that they're trying to keep away from the person asking them questions or showing them something. So when she says, how could somebody think I did that? Or how someone could think I did that? That's when we see that, because she did it. And I think that what we're seeing there is duper's delight. So we're not seeing what looks like contempt, because we're going to see that same side of her mouth pull up when the other side really doesn't. But look closely, because you'll see that micro expression of it's a little smile, and it does go up into a smile more than contempt at that point. She's trying to make it look like contempt, but it's a smile there. So that's what I got. All right.
Great catch. Great catch.
I have been incarcerated for 12 and a half, going on 13 years now.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
You're sitting here a wrongfully convicted person.
Correct. Absolutely.
And what have those years been like?
I tell people it's not as bad as you think in some ways, and it's so much worse than I could ever articulate in others. After all these years, I still feel hurt. I still feel bothered. I still feel like, how could somebody think that I did that?
Hey, yep. Is anybody else, was Scott jerky to anybody else?
It's a little bit, check your connection. It was fine. Yeah. We got it all. Check your connection or check everything shut down.
Oh, I see the problem. I hope I don't lose you guys.
You know what's funny? Like, no matter how glitchy Scott is to us, he won't be on his own computer, and he's recording locally. So
that's the reason I didn't say anything while he was doing it.
Okay. There. Okay, everybody back now? Okay, so that should be good. I was on the wrong. Good call, Mark and Greg, too. I was on the wrong spot.
Great catch, though. We got the
Oh, thanks. All right.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
He was so kind. I'd come back to my desk after a long meeting with a patient, and there'd be lunch sitting on my desk waiting for me. You know, there was always a little bit of flirtation, banter back and forth.
Melanie was about 38 weeks pregnant, and things changed between her and Dr. Miller.
I was about to go out on maternity leave, and I was sitting actually in his office at his desk. I just mentioned I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and he put his hands on my shoulders and started to rub my back. I really tried to fight it because this was not going to be good. This was not going to be good for anybody. But I couldn't fight it.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, there's a fake smile at the end. You can't miss it if you just go to the very end and watch. You'll see she's got a smile that's kind of awkward, like she's nervous and trying to fake it. She's trying to make a connection. She's trying to humanize herself here, although she's talking about having an affair on her husband when she's pregnant. And I think there's a whole lot of circumstantial stuff when you go to this, and people are going to have opinions about this case one way or the other because they've seen it. Some people are going to say you hate her because, some people are going to say you were too easy on her. It's just the way it is. But when she's talking about this story about the person she's having an affair with, her eyes drift down into her right into emotional accessing, and her face kind of lights up. It actually softens. Now, she's already accused at this point, I believe, of murder. This is during her trial phase or sometime in there. And her cadence gets slower at these emotional issues. She adapts with some nervous laughter and says, this is not going to be good, but I couldn't fight it. And then she makes that eye contact like she's trying to win this person over. It looks manipulative to me. It doesn't like a friend telling you a story about something happened. It looks like fishing, and it looks like manipulation. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Everything looks okay to me, except when we get up to the part where she starts talking about, I had a pinched nerve in my neck. And when she says neck, that's when we see the eyebrow flutter like that. And what we're seeing there, again, is another emblematic slip, because instead of quite often you'll see, like I was saying earlier, you'll see a quick shrug or a single shoulder shrug, and that indicates that person is not sure about their answer. They may be not telling the truth, or they don't know the answer. But quite often you'll see their hands open like this, what I call mercy hands, when they do like, I don't know. But at the same time, you can have that happen in your lips and your eyebrows as well. That can mean the same thing. So it's the same cue you're looking for, but it's your lips go up and your eyebrows go up at the same time like this. Well, I can't do it perfectly. She does. So when you go back through, watch that. So that's at the same time that can mean the same thing or show the same insecurity about her answer as the short shrug. At the same time, we're seeing, as she does that, we're hearing her talk in what are called fading, or what I term fading facts. She gets quieter as she goes along. Her voice is getting softer as she goes along. Then we see after she says, I couldn't fight it. Two big things. We're seeing lip compression and pursing. Now, the lip compression, she knows she shouldn't have said that because she wasn't really thinking that. And the pursing it, she really didn't feel that way about that. She wanted this to happen, and she knew it wasn't going to be good, but she was like, oh, this isn't going to be good for anybody. Like, it's not good. She wanted to be working for her. All these indicators individually grouped together tell me, and it should tell you, that we're seeing deception here. So that whole thing is, she's just trying to make herself look clean coming out of that, where I'm sure she fished that guy in every possible way she could to make him be into her. All right, Chase, what do you got?
So this is not referring to her husband, just in case you didn't understand that about this video. This is the doctor that she was alleged to have killed her husband to be with. And I think she's comfortable here with some of this body narration. She's putting her hands on her neck and illustrating and showing us part of the story using her gestures when she's talking about this pinched nerve. But right when she says, this was not going to be good for anybody, this is just a weird selling of a love story that shouldn't be there. This is, while she's trying to proclaim her innocence, the love story should probably, and what I would suggest would be the other way, would be that the love story should revolve around the deceased husband, if it were probably truthful, especially, and she's trying to get him back. But then she's wringing her hands together, and there's a strange edit here that I would have loved to see, and her facial expression kind of gets cut off, and it switches back to the other person. And when she says, I couldn't fight it anymore, and the smile starts coming. I was watching this yesterday when we put them into our little Dropbox. It's probably 5 a.m, and I could feel my entire face wrench into disgust watching this. It's just awful. So the facial expression is fabricated. And in the words of Paul Ekman, who is a researcher who discovered these things that we always talk about called microexpression, he is the godfather. He invented it. I think he actually invented the word. So he has a quote that we learn to lie with our face first before we fully develop language. And her angle here is to show this like a Disney love story, like it was just some magical thing that happened, which I thought was horrifying to me. That's all I got. Mark?
Yeah, I agree. She has this kind of romantic frown that she puts on when she's talking about the massage that's being had there. I think it's quite a bizarre clip here because when she talks about his, and she's talking here about the doctor, I believe, I would suggest we see disdain there. We also get that head shift to an oblique and the eyes target as well, which for me looks like pre-violence. So I'm not sure whether she's talking about him, the doctor, but thinking about the violence towards the husband in order to win that doctor prize or free up for that. Well, the doctor's the next one on the list. I'm just not sure what's going on here, but that's what I see. Look, the target of the eyes. Go back and see where Scott was talking about the eyes narrowing and it being painful, it being a wince. And look at the difference. There's a difference when the eyes narrow because it's that kind of, oh, that's a bit painful. This idea of a painful experience. And when the eyes narrow because we're trying to gauge the amount of light going in order to get a target ready and also protect the eyes because we're about to go into a violent situation, because there's a difference between the two. She says it's not going to be good and chaste. That's where I think you were talking about what she's doing with her hands, which again is really interesting. One of the hands is broken at the wrist, so it's quite weak. And the other hand is protecting the knuckles and these joints here. So whether it's congruent or incongruent, because it could be congruent or it could be incongruent, she's portraying or showing or weakness here. Again, is that weakness because she is lying and internally she knows this, or is it weakness because she's potentially in a relationship that she doesn't like and she's being touched in a way that she doesn't like, or she's not invited at the time? Could be that. Or is it a weakness because she's going, I'm going to show everybody that I'm weak and I want to play that game on them? Again, I don't know exactly which one it is, though based on everything else that we've seen, I could start to gamble on it, and I might gamble that it's an act that she's putting on, though I could be wrong, but I gamble on the act. There, that's what I got on that one. I think that's everybody, yeah?
Yep.
All right.
Be right back. I got to turn something off.
Okay.
He was so kind. I'd come back to my desk after a long meeting with a patient, and there'd be lunch sitting on my desk waiting for me. You know, there was always a little bit of flirtation, banter back and forth.
Melanie was about 38 weeks pregnant, and things changed between her and Dr. Miller.
I was about to go out on maternity leave, and I was sitting actually in his office at his desk. I just mentioned I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and he put his hands on my shoulders and started to rub my back. I really tried to fight it because this was not going to be good. This was not going to be good for anybody, but I couldn't fight it.
Scott, you are still glitching a little bit at my end, though it might not make any difference your end.
Here too.
Oh, dang it. Well, it's just us. All right, let me see if I can get everybody back. Hang on 1 second. Dang it.
A house. The marriage wasn't going well at all. So why were you buying this $500,000 house together then?
The idea for me was we had a chunk of money, cash, that we were putting down on this house. In the past, we'd come to points where we had been in similar situations, and ultimately something would happen and he would go and gamble the money away. I figured this at least was an investment.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so I would say she's censoring herself in this one. There's that moment where she goes, he would, and then there's that look up, a kind of a wry smile, a sense of delight during that. So I think she censors herself as to what used to happen in those situations. And if I were their questioner, I'd go, because she talks about, ultimately in the end, I'd be saying, well, hang on, what would happen before ultimately what would happen in that moment? So wry smile, I don't think it's dupe as delight. I just think it's kind of wry. There's a sense of pleasure to it. Yeah. Chase, what do you think?
Yeah, when she says, I agree. She says this idea for me. She emphasizes the words for me. And I think this phrase alone suggests that somebody else had another idea. And so she got this in her head and she wanted to own this and say that this was my side of the equation. So just that tiny accentuation on the for me was important for me because it separated my idea from, maybe somebody else's that I didn't really agree with. And when she's talking about similar situations, there's eye accessing that matches up to the hype that she's talking about, to the level of frustration that she's really communicating here. But she does different eye accessing. Greg, I'm sure you'll talk about this. She goes up to 1 o'clock when she's talking about he would gamble the money away. Something would inevitably happen. So what do you got on that?
Yeah, so I think that when she looks up, we typically associate up above the brow ridge with something visual. Now, remember, we're not talking, this is baseline, so we have to look at individuals. If I baseline you, you're going to do one thing. If I baseline you, you're going to do another. But when she moves her eyes up, she's going into that visual cortex. And when she does that, I think it's because she's remembering a specific time. When she's doing that specific time, you see some contempt as that left side of the face rises too. So she probably gave away a ton of money, or they lost a ton of money at one point, and that's a key, might be the trigger point, who knows. We also see that she does a lip compression when she said similar. She does a lip compression there because she's holding something back, and she's doing a request for approval. She raises her brow when she's talking about that one time. The other one, I agree with you guys, when she's looking down and to her right, when she's talking about the idea for me, that's emotion. So maybe somebody else had a different idea, maybe something else happened, but somewhere in her head, she's moving between some emotion and then back to some memory and some contempt. That's what I see in the whole picture.
That's what I'm saying here. Yeah, because what we're seeing is a perfect blend of the truth and a lie. And it goes in and out, in and out, the truth and lie. And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Because we're seeing her tell the truth, but then she goes and tells a lie. But the lie is the smile. And when she's telling the truth, I think she's trying to hide all that in that one spot. Now, up to this point, the half smiles we've seen didn't start with contempt. They end in contempt, whereas this one begins with contempt. So
could we call that a French braid?
Yes, that's how I had that.
Okay.
Funny.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Melanie described the events that would happen later on as a big fight.
You and Bill had a horrible fight, yes?
Correct. We fell asleep on the couch, woke up early morning hours, and it was never a bad time for an argument. I'm talking probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And it starts on the house. I settled for that house. The hell are you talking about? You settled for that house. It's a $500,000 house. That's not what I wanted.
Here we go.
Was a goal. He needed more money. He wasn't somebody who could sit there and be content with what we had. It was always, it had to be a step better.
Melanie says Bill became increasingly erratic, even volatile. She remembers one night he called from the road in a rage after getting a speeding ticket. She hung up on him.
He called back, cursing any number of obscenities at me, and told me that if I was there when he got home, he was going to kill me.
Did you believe him?
No, but I was scared.
Despite the ongoing battles, Melanie agreed to buy a new house with Bill. If you were so unhappy, why would you bother to look forward to the future? I mean,
kids.
that's a 15 to 30-year commitment.
For the kids. Even though we weren't happy, we weren't ending this marriage anytime soon that I could see.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, when she's talking about the situation, look at all the internal voice. We always tell you that when a person's doing this, they're thinking about how to approach the wording of what they're going to say. She's very carefully. First of all, her whole image is constructed. That's Central Jersey. There's a very speech pattern is pretty normal for Central Jersey, that cadence. And so she's very careful with that, how she's delivering her message. She's got that internal voice kind of thing going on, but her brow rises when she starts to say, no, but I was scared, and she's asking for approval there. Now, does that mean somebody's lying or guilty or evil? No, but it means something has changed when that goes up in her head and the rest doesn't. She shows some disdain when she's talking about him, and her message back to, I think it was video 1 or 2, is back to, I was sacrificing. That was what it was. It was me sacrificing. And that little smirk of her face, I'll leave that to Mark. What did you see there?
So she says any number of obscenities. So I simply go, well, which ones? Like, there are a lot. So tell me 1 or 2 or 3. That she's not being specific enough here. Kill me, sour taste in the mouth there. Now, is that congruent or not? Is the sour taste about the bad taste of her feeling like she is going to be killed? Or is there deceit in there? I don't know which one it is. I would probably at this point, given all that we've been through, say it's most likely deceit than anything else. A great question from the interviewer, which is, did you believe him? So that's a good question. Look, all I'd say at this point is, this is clearly a case where domestic violence is coming up, and so everybody is going to have all kinds of biases, influences, judgments about that. Sure. As we watch these, and you go back and watch these, see if you can just totally detach yourself from everything that comes up around domestic violence, so you can get into a real sense of, is this somebody who is a victim and has been violent out of that? Or is this somebody who was going to be violent anyway and hasn't been a victim? Because you're going to throw a whole bunch of bias on it. Sure. Anybody will. Scott, what do you got?
All right. I'll just cover the stuff the cues that let us know she's probably not being honest about this whole thing. Right. She's got her shoulder forward. That's her barrier already. And then not only is she breaking eye contact, she's looking down at the floor. So she's hardcore gone. It doesn't mean, as we all know, just because you break eye contact doesn't mean you're not telling the truth. Most of the time, the person who does break eye contact, as we know, is the person that's probably telling the truth. But in this case, it's a little bit hardcore, I think. What else have I got? Oh, and so her voice tone starts getting quieter and softer as she goes along. The further she gets into the story, the quieter it gets, and the more it disappears. The whole thing starts to disappear. So those are some of the first things that I looked for in there, or saw out of this as we started up. Chase, what did you see?
Yeah, I agree with all of y'all. And when she's saying what we had, everything needs to be a step better, I'm going to go deep here for just a second, if you'll forgive me.
I'm grabbing my wine then.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the Carl Jung shadow. And that everything needing to be a step better was the reason she committed the murder. So that's the reason she's placing so much judgment on the husband, perhaps. But one big thing here is that there's a confirmation glance during the emotional part of the story. If you're talking to a person, if y'all are ever talking to a person who's really just recalling this emotional story, they don't give a crap whether or not you're really sucked into the story. They're emotional, they're internal, they're behind their eyes when they're being emotional. This person is in front of her eyes throughout the entire conversation. And when she's saying it's for the kids, there's self-effacement, there's no eye contact. It's kind of like when we talked about the close eye talkers, like somebody does something, puts in some new solar panels on their house and like, well, it's good for the environment, I think that was going on right there. And I think she maybe accidentally is talking about them both being unhappy instead of painting herself as a victim. And I think that might be an accident. Or when we talk about priming, when we say something in the beginning, we're more likely to behave that way in the future. Since she just self-effaced and talked about how good of a person she was for the kids, that this self-effacement made her more likely to say we both weren't happy and made her less likely to paint the husband as a monster. Deceptive. I would say this is a very deceptive statement, in my opinion.
What did you guys think of that for the kids exposing the teeth? You think it's just a speech pattern?
I think it's an adapter. I mean, weird. But if you look at what she's doing, quite often her mouth will go up and she'll do that. That's happening throughout these. So that's why on one hand, I think it's an adapter, and another hand, I think it might be a cultural situation or just a tick she's got or something, just in doing that, because it was odd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's odd, but it's part of her baseline.
Well, and this is 20 years before the other video or so.
Yeah.
So that, it's interesting. So
Was a goal. He needed more money. He wasn't somebody who could sit there and be content with what we had. It had to be a step better.
Melanie says Bill became increasingly erratic, even volatile. She remembers one night he called from the road in a rage after getting a speeding ticket. She hung up on him.
He called back, cursing any number of obscenities at me, and told me that if I was there when he got home, he was going to kill me.
Did you believe him?
No, but I was scared.
Despite the ongoing battles, Melanie agreed to buy a new house with Bill.
If you were so unhappy, why would you bother to look forward to the future? I mean,
kids.
that's a 15 to 30-year commitment.
For the kids. Even though we weren't happy, we weren't ending this marriage anytime soon that I could see.
Oh, yeah.
On the night of April 28, 2004, back in their apartment after the closing, Melanie says they got into the fight that finally convinced her to leave Bill. Believe it or not, it was all over a simple dryer sheet.
He hated them. He hated them. And I always left them in the pile of laundry. And from there, the fight progresses to me getting slammed up against the doorway and getting the dryer sheet shoved in my mouth and slapped across the face. And at this point, one of the kids is there. I grab him, scoop him up, and lock myself in the bathroom.
What was he saying to you through the doorway?
I'm going to take the kids, and you'll never see them again.
Melanie says Bill packed his bags and stormed off in his car.
All right, Mark, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm just going to give some relationship advice here, which is maybe not really in my ball court, and maybe there'll be some people out there who say you shouldn't be doing that at all, but I'm going to do it. It's never about the dryer sheets. It's never about the washing up. Whatever it is, if you're in some kind of argument that's domestic, that is just an avatar for what's really going on. And the best question you can ask, so you stand a better chance, probably not in this case, but a better chance of not moving into a position that you regret, is going, what's this really about? When you're having some kind of argument about the washing up, the dryer sheets, or whatever it is domestic, is to stop and go, hang on, what is this argument really about? because we know this isn't an argument about dryer sheets. It isn't anything. Right. Nobody has an argument about dryer sheets that moves anybody to murder. There is something else going on here. What is this really about? Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right, I agree with you. We got to be careful here because people go nuts when it comes in marriages. Some of these relationships, and these guys do. I mean, you're talking about cutting somebody up and putting them in a bag,
sure.
In the shopping bag. So the thing she's talking about sounds out there, but this guy could have been doing that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I'm sure it happens. We just,
right.
We're just being shown or talking about it here. But I think it did happen because her nods during that are what I call confirmation nods. Instead of just like yes when she's saying that, and when and the parts where she's saying it didn't happen, those are the negative, are not negative confirmation nods, but they're confirming, but they're just saying no. They're confirming the no. I'm not so sure. If he did all this, I think he did it, and these things may happen. I don't think he was hollering through the door. The worst thing a woman can hear is, I'm going to take your children, and you'll never see him again. Who's going to add the and you'll never see him again? He would just leave, I would think. He may say that. That doesn't sound too likely that he's going to say, and you'll never see him again. He says, I'm taking the kids and we're leaving. If he said that's because she was maybe on the nutty side, obviously she is, and she's in trouble for cutting him up and putting him in the suitcase. So I think that a lot of it probably happened, and I think that might have been what she used as her excuse to do that to him. But I don't think I don't think it was a situation where he left and she never saw him again. I think maybe that's coming up is where I think where whatever she did happened. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
So I think there was some truth with the dryer sheets, but I think there's some truth and some lies to the story. It's another French braid.
Yeah, it's a blend, for sure.
I think we should just keep that going. But
you branded it.
Then she says there's me getting slammed up against the doorway. Vanishing perpetrator. Finally get to say it in person. The husband's gone. And there's no pronouns. Zero. The dryer sheet shoved in my mouth. Not a person doing it. It just a random dryer sheet in the air being shoved into a mouth. I think there's some auditory recall that she shows right around this area where I think they're back to the French braid. She's recalling a truthful argument that might have actually happened here. And then she's saying at this point, the kids, still the husband is gone. And she locks herself in the bathroom, still no mention of the husband. The kids are all of a sudden missing. So like now she's just kind of alone in the bathroom. They kind of disappear from the story. And he says you'll never see them again, but then he packs and leaves without the kids completely.
Right.
But maybe she says he packs up. Why say that he packs up? Maybe some suitcases needed to be missing.
Oh, okay.
And some plastic bags and some.
Yeah. So I think it's a French braid. Let's just call it that. It's some truth in here and some bigger deception.
Yeah, and I agree with all of you because what I'm seeing in the eye accessing and when she's moving, when she talks about the dryer sheets, you see some emotion. Does that mean this actually happened? Maybe, maybe not. But what it does mean is somewhere in the background, there's been a dryer sheet issue. And Mark, to your point, this is back to my cat brain, monkey brain kind of thing. Once you get to a certain point of stress and you start screaming and yelling and you're upset, the dryer sheet might be the final straw. And so you're not thinking anymore, you're just reacting, and that's the way they behave. Her eyes go to the opposite side when she says the dryer sheet shoved in my mouth. To what she's been doing for recall, which is here. Remember, we talk about baseline. She's been going left, left, left. Now she goes right. And then she has a lot of eyelid flutter right in that case. And that's back to your closed eye talking thing. So here's your French braid. So what does all that mean together? Don't know. But when she says one of the kids was in the room, one of the kids, the most important people in her life, and it was one of the kids. It's like one of the guys who lives down the street was in there. No, right. Come on. You would know, in my opinion, under high stress and you're really embarrassed or whatever's going on, you would think, hey, my youngest or my oldest was in there, and you'd have different reasons why that mattered, my opinion. So I think we're seeing exactly your French braid, all this stuff tying together in that it looks like she's telling the truth, but she might be, as Barry Minko said to me one time, fraud is the skin of the truth stuffed with lies. It's the easiest way to lie. So
I agree with you, especially about the kids.
Give me that one.
Melanie McGuire says she was devastated by her husband Bill's death.
What is the last thing that you remember saying to Bill?
You'd have to edit it.
Give me the gist.
F you.
That's the last thing you said to him.
Yeah. And I have to live with
All right, I'll go first on this one. This is, again, the blend of the truth with the lie. And Ekman is the one that actually started calling it the blend of the two. But I think the French braid thing, that works great well as well. But let's not leave him out saying that's where it came from. So what's the true part? So she says, F you, that was true. But the lie part is her facial expression. Because what we're seeing after that is this fake disgust. Everything we're seeing, she's showing us the cartoon version of disgust, but we're not seeing the true version. What should happen is this part of the mouth should come up a little bit more, as we know, as these come down. And when this comes up, she's pulling up. It's not being pushed up, or she's pushing up. It's not being pulled up by the brain. So so it's more pronounced down here than around the sides of the nose.
But it is the brain. It's a different part.
Yep. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, a different part of the brain is pushing up. She's using the wrong part of the brain to push
conscious
up.
Brain.
Yep. However you would say it. So that's what I'm seeing there. So we're seeing the sadness down in the corner of her mouth, but that's not going down the right way. We're not seeing the chin boss push up the way it should push up. These are fake emotions, and that's just that these are classic shots from the Ekman books and studies. So I think, for me, that's not. No. I think he did. I think she did say that to him. She did say the FU thing, but her facial expressions are the lie part about it. So I don't think she feels that way about it. I think she meant it, and I think she still means it. I think she showed that when she ended up cutting him up, putting him in a suitcase. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think her facial expressions say at all what she thinks they're saying. In fact, she's a bad liar on both fronts, because I'm going to tell you I feel bad about something I said to you, Mark. I feel remorse. I'm showing you my lower teeth and grimacing at you.
Thanks for your acting.
Yeah. I mean, so what the hell? What are you thinking? She's sending the message. When you think of people in remorse, there's shame and all of that associated. So we think of the chin dropping, the chin boss rising, all those pieces you're talking about. We don't expect her to show those lower teeth to that degree. We don't expect all that draw and that I see disgust that she's doing, but I think the disgust is overridden by the rage, by the anger that's in there. And so she's got a mess of a facial expression, and I'm with you, doesn't at all convey what she's trying to say with her mouth. What do you got, Chase?
I agree with y'all. Let me add on a couple things here. There's a short 3 o'clock movement, which you just mentioned in the previous video, which is uncharacteristic for her behavior. When she says, there's a little fake disgust on the face, false facial expression. I think she's trying to be sad and it's not working. I just think she's selling sadness and showing us something else. And when she says, I have to live with that, she maintains eye contact long enough to deliver the line and then goes into this internal dialogue. So then she retreats, but only after she's got the line delivered. And if you take a look again, the emotion doesn't start until she gets to this FU line. So it should start when she's saying, oh, you have to edit it. And then she's thinking about, that's when you would see the emotion start on the face if it was truthful. But it just starts right at that point when she wants to start delivering, not when she starts feeling. So it starts at delivery, not on an actual feeling. And I think she's very confident about this whole thing until she gets to this regret, shame, sadness, mix-up French braid. That's all I got. Mark, what do you got?
Yep, so I think she's trying to sell sorrow. So the chin boss is on, off, on, off, on, off. In real emotions, it kind of creeps up slow. There's a slow volume. This is like up, down, up, down, up, down. That's not normal for a true emotion. So I think emotions creep up on you, and you don't really get to stop them because the social part of the brain that kind of says, oh, it'd be really weird to have this emotion in front of the cameras or in front of a group of people. It's not working at the time when the emotion kind of washes over you. Yeah. And so you get this kind of slow volume increase until the moment where the person goes, oh, I'm in a socially awkward situation here. And then usually you will get some kind of eye blocking or look away, some kind of covering now I was watching this film about Anthony Bourdain on the plane over. Right. So if you want to see true emotions of sorrow, they are time after time after time when the people in the film are talking about him committing suicide, and these emotions just flood up and wash over them. Very, very true emotions, and you see the eye blocking, but it's all very slow and slow increases of volume, not this jerky on-off situation.
Yeah.
She's completely acting it, and it's bad acting.
And it's slow to turn off, too.
Yeah.
It's slow to come off.
Yeah, you can't just shut it down.
There's no brake pedal.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Melanie McGuire says she was devastated by her husband Bill's death.
What is the last thing that you remember saying to Bill?
You'd have to edit it.
Give me the gist.
F you.
That's the last thing you said to him.
Yeah. And I have to live with
All right. Well, let's talk about what we saw in this whole thing. Greg, what do you?
Yeah, so is it possible that she just has the most unfortunate persona on earth and that she didn't do it? Yeah, that's possible. It's possible she just looks guilty. She's trying to fake sympathy. She hated the guy and something happened to him. She hadn't. All that's possible. But what we look for are clusters, and what we're looking for are reasons. So we're all seeing it. We're all seeing what you call a French spray, whatever we want to call it. She's mixing the truth and a lie, and she's twisting it all together. Why would you be doing that? Why wouldn't you just say, here are the facts and here's how it happened? So my vote is, in my opinion, down. She's in trouble.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with you. I think it's a great example of seeing that blend of truth and dishonesty at the same time. She weaves it well. Or how would you say it? So it doesn't sound so corny.
Braids it well.
Yeah.
French braid.
Braids it well.
Yeah.
I think she does a great job of that. I think it's a great study in that to see, because she's been convicted of that.
Right.
So I'd feel okay about saying she probably did it, since a bunch of 12 people said she did already. And
Yeah, a good
they're in
opinion.
hell for it.
Opinion.
So yeah, it's just my opinion. But I think that's a great study in that. Mark?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting in that there is a strong possibility that some kind of violence may have been perpetrated on her.
Sure.
And we can see that that's a possibility. So at the same time, when you're analyzing that, you've got to have that in your mind and not have it in your mind at the same time. And for me, this is a great exercise in trying to do those things at the same time so that you can have a kind of a quantum possibility of both things being true at the same time, so you can really analyze what's going on. It is a detachment from the emotion and empathy for this person, when we should all potentially have empathy, because maybe there was some violence there, maybe not, but try and detach from that empathy when you're looking at these videos, and then go back and be empathetic and see what you come up with then. Do both when you analyze.
Yeah, I think that's great. Try on a different persona when you watch it a different way. That's like if you're a Ford person, you have to understand that there are people who like Chevys, and that it might be possible for you to sit inside a Chevy and maybe appreciate it a little bit. And I mean, that level of bias is psychologically just as deep.
Yep.
When people are loyal to brands, people get Harley Davidson tattoos, you might actually enjoy getting on a Kawasaki every once in a while. And so we have loyalty to certain situations and certain things because we tie those things into our identity. In my opinion, in the video, I think that she has probably grown up from a very young age. This was a defense mechanism because her parents were probably sharp at catching her in deceptive moments or catching her in little things. So she learned this, I bet, from a young age to say, I'm going to get a piece of the truth and I'm going to make a little sandwich with some truth. I'm going to put my story here and some truth. So I think she is guilty only if you just look at what's being concealed and what she's showing stress around.
No van a ser, no van a ser,